A racist Karen falsely accused me of stealing my luxury sports car just because she couldn't handle the fact that I, a black man, could afford it. She ends up getting me arrested, so I sued her and the officers who arrested me. Here's what happened. So it was a summer day in July, and I had just finished a long shift at the office. I'm a 28-year-old male who's black. According to Karen, who we will introduce later, being black means you cannot be a successful business owner. I had worked hard to afford the finer things in life, including my beautiful Ferrari 488 GTB. I was driving home from work, enjoying the feeling of the wind in my hair and the sun on my face, when I saw a middle-aged woman, Karen, pull her car in front of mine to stop me. I slowed down and rolled down my window to see what was going on. That's when she called me a thief and accused me of stealing my own car. I'll never understand why some people feel the need to project their insecurities onto others. "Excuse me, ma'am, can you please shut the frick up?" I said in a demeaning tone. "This is my car, you woman." "Oh, please. A young black man like you couldn't possibly afford a car like this," she sneered. "You're just a liar and a thief." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This woman is not only entitled, but also a blatant racist. I was reluctant to show her my license and registration, but when she threatened to call the cops, I complied because I don't have time for this garbage. "See, everything is in order," I said. "I am the legal owner of this car, and you're just poor." But she just waved her hand dismissively and continued to shout at me. "I don't believe you. You're just trying to con me. I'm calling the police." And with that, she pulled out her phone and dialed the cops. I couldn't believe it. This entitled racist Karen was actually calling the police on me, just because she couldn't handle the fact that a black man like me could own a luxury sports car. I felt my blood boiling, but I knew I had to keep my cool. I couldn't afford to get into any legal trouble, especially not over an entitled racist jerk's false accusations. So I waited patiently while she spoke to the police and explained her side of the story. It wasn't long before the squad car showed up. I watched as the two officers approached, their faces grim and serious. "Sir, can you step out of the car, please?" the older officer said. I sighed and did as I was told, knowing that I had done nothing wrong. But as soon as I stepped out of the car, I was grabbed by the arms and thrown against the hood. "What the hell is going on here?" I shouted. "I haven't done anything wrong." "Ma'am, what's your name?" the younger officer asked Karen. "I'm Karen. My husband is a famous CEO," she replied, puffing out her chest with pride. "And this man stole my car." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This woman was actually trying to claim my car as her own. I tried to explain the situation to the officers, but they weren't interested in listening. They just cuffed me and put me in the back of the squad car, even though I didn't do anything wrong. The cops gave Karen my keys, and they drove off with her, and I was driven to the police station. I was fuming, but I knew I had to stay calm and figure out a way to rectify this stupidity. The following night in jail was long and frustrating, but I knew I had to be patient. I couldn't let this happen. How could police officers be this sloppy with their jobs? I couldn't believe that I was being arrested for something I didn't do. It was outrageous and completely unacceptable. I knew I had to do something about it, so I called my lawyer as soon as I could. Finally, in the early hours of the morning, my lawyer showed up and bailed me out. I was relieved to finally be out of that hellhole, but I was still angry and determined to get to the bottom of this. My lawyer and I went to the police station to speak to the officers who had arrested me. We wanted to know exactly what had happened and why I had been accused of something I didn't do. When we arrived at the police station, we were met with a rude and uncooperative attitude from the officers. They seemed annoyed that we were even there, and they were unwilling to give us any information. My lawyer did his best to persuade them to speak with us, but it was no use. They were determined to keep us in the dark. Finally, after a lot of negotiating and arguing, we were able to get some answers. It turns out Karen had a history of making false accusations and was known for causing trouble in the neighborhood. When the cops searched her car, they found drugs and arrested her on the spot. I couldn't believe it. This entitled racist Karen was actually a criminal, and she had caused all of this trouble for me. I was angry as hell. I decided to press charges and sue the police department for racial negligence. I mean, how could they arrest an innocent man based on the word of some entitled racist Karen? It was outrageous and completely unacceptable. My lawyer and I spent the next few weeks gathering evidence and preparing for the case. But as it turned out, the real outrage was yet to come. When we went to retrieve my car from the impound lot, we found that it had been vandalized. The paint was scratched, the tires were slashed, and the hood had been dented. I couldn't believe my eyes. This idiot had actually damaged my beloved Ferrari out of sheer spite and jealousy. I was beyond angry at this point. I vowed to pursue this case to the fullest extent of the law. I wasn't going to let this woman get away with what she had done. I was going to make sure that she paid for her crimes, both financially and legally. In the end, I was vindicated and my name was cleared. I ended up getting paid out around $500,000 for the damages plus time wasted on this case. Surprisingly, the police officers were fired, because that usually never happens. Yeah, anyways, frick you, Karen, and enjoy time in jail. Thank you for the free money. This story is ridiculous. Like, how could someone just falsely accuse someone of stealing their own car just because they're black? And then to top it off, the police just arrest him without even trying to listen to his side of the story? That's messed up, and it's making me think this story is fake. But if it's not, I'm glad the OP was able to sue the Karen and those officers and get some justice. It's just crazy that stuff like this still happens nowadays. It's sad to see that racism is still so prevalent in our society. But I'm glad the OP was able to stand up for himself and fight back against the injustice. A Karen in my small town tried to force me out of business by suing me for defamation after I opened my own successful liquor store. I end up winning the lawsuit and destroyed him. Here's what happened. I am 26 years old, and I decided to open up my own business this year. Moving forward in this post, I should point out that I'm from a small town, 1,000 people, in the rural Midwest. Because of this, everyone has some sort of connection with someone. We went to one of the liquor stores in the closest city, 30-ish minutes away, small city, 8,000 people. When we were grabbing some alcohol for a party, I was looking at the prices and I saw how insane the prices were. For a 6-pack of local beer, we were charged $15. I was thinking about this, and I figured that I could probably make bank opening a liquor store. Back in February, I was furious about my shitty job and thinking out loud how cool it would be to own my own business to a friend. My friend's mom happened to be the president of the local bank. He told me, hey, with the pandemic, the bank has been struggling to find customers to give out loans. Right now, the bank is giving loans for cheap. A couple of weeks later, I went in and met with my friend's mom and pitched my idea with the research I had done on alcohol prices, potential demand, and estimated income. I got the loan at a fantastic interest rate. I bought a building, which happened to be the former bank, and hired my dad to help me renovate the building. My dad is a general contractor, and he gave me an excellent quote on materials and labor. After working everything out with the distributors, getting the proper licenses, and getting my paperwork I needed for the government, I was ready to open my liquor store in May. I had started taking out ads in the local newspaper advertising my store and my prices. When I was in talks with my distributors, I learned, even with inflation and everything else, the liquor stores in the city had like an 80% markup. I talked to a local business owner, and he suggested that I have around a 35% to 40% markup. Because of this, I was significantly cheaper than the closest liquor store, and had a much wider selection than the gas stations and small local stores nearby. My hometown is near a national forest. As such, we have a ton of people who come up for weekends for recreational activities year-round. My first week, the week before Memorial Weekend, after opening, I had made a $4,000 profit. It was great being my own boss. If someone was rude to me or my girlfriend, oh, I'm sorry, you can do your business elsewhere. If someone tells my girlfriend, go back to China, you insert racist word here, bitch, they can pay me 15% more at the register. Did the gang and I run out of alcohol? Time to grab my keys, not car keys, the store keys. My apartment is like 2 blocks away, and go to the store. That's not to say that it wasn't difficult running my own business. Especially, my only employee was my girlfriend, and we were both working 6 or 7, 10 to 12-hour days a week. I was both manager, accountant, and cashier. But fuck, it's so much nicer knowing I can tell someone to pound sand for being a prick. Couple of weeks after Memorial Day, some old guy walks into my store a couple of minutes after I opened. He seemed friendly enough, but eventually, he offered to buy my store. I'm not going to say the amount, but it wouldn't have even covered my principal on the loan. I rejected the proposal outright and refused to negotiate the sum higher. He walked out of my store saying, well, you'll be sorry you rejected that offer. The next month, a guy walked into my store and asked if I was the owner. After saying yes, I was informed that my business was being sued by this random guy I never heard of for libel. After he left, I was freaking out and decided that I was going to close early. When I got home, I Googled the guy and soon saw a picture of the guy that tried to buy my store. It turns out that is the guy who owns both of the liquor stores in the nearby city. It also just so happens that he is on the city council. With a little bit of further digging, I learned that this city has an ordinance that reads, any business institution that does not fulfill the definition of a restaurant, tavern, or liquor dispensary will be excluded from obtaining a license for the sale of alcohol. Later, I discovered that the same guy happens to be the head of the board which approves liquor licenses. I love small-town corruption. Either way, I had a major issue. My maternal uncle happens to be a lawyer in a neighboring state. I decided to call him and try to get some legal advice. I talked to him and read the documents that I had been handed/served over the phone, and the research I had done. After receiving all the information I had read off, I was expecting to get some sort of advice, but instead heard, "Hang on, I gotta make a call," and he hung up. I'm freaking out. I was actually about to post my first post to r/legal advice. I'll be honest, I just wanted someone to tell me it was going to be okay, and I didn't need to crawl to this guy on my hands and knees. As I was writing the title, my uncle called back. "Hey, OP, I just got off the phone with my partner. He agreed that we can take your case pro bono. If you'd like to accept, we can discuss in my office tomorrow at 1 o'clock. This is how I learned that my uncle is on the bar in 3 states. So we met, and we discussed the case. It turns out that the guy filed a libel suit against my business based on the ads I took out in the local newspapers. He claimed that my ads were targeted to damage his and his business's reputation. There were a few other things that I had no idea what was being referenced, but Uncle assured me that we would win this case no problem. 3 weeks later, the case is dismissed. But after, my uncle says, people like that piece of work will likely try to file another suit against you. If that happens, call me, and I promise I will help. The next day, I get served again. But this time, I am the defendant, not my store, me. I swear to God, I look at the documentation, and the only thing that changed was instead of my business's name, mine is listed as the defendant. Same thing happens. 4 weeks later, the case is dismissed. Over the next 3 months, I was sued just as many times. Before the 5th case hearing, we had a settlement meeting. My uncle, the judge, the guy suing me, his lawyer, a bailiff, and I were sitting in this room. Judge says, "You two have been in court 4 times already. Is there any way we could come to an agreement that'll stop this cycle of faulty litigation?" The guy's lawyer says they have an offer and hand it to my uncle, who then hands it to me. It essentially read that he'll stop all litigation if I sell my business for about 30% of remaining loan principal. I outright rejected the offer and made a counteroffer. I said, "If you drop this case, I won't sue your ass for harassment." He busts out laughing. "Sue me? With what money? The legal fees alone ought to have drained you. You should be happy I chose to extend this offer and not sue your ass into bankruptcy and buy that shithole from the bank when the foreclose on your dumb ass." The judge, the bailiff, and the guy's own lawyer were all looking at him aghast for saying the silent part out loud about the real reason I was getting sued. My uncle straight out said to him, "Oh, I'm sorry. Apparently you were never told. I have taken all of my nephew's cases pro bono. The only money he has spent on your litigations is gas. And bluntly, sir, I think your outburst has just ensured a suit against you." After that, we just left. And I was then informed a few days later the litigation was dropped. Right now, my uncle and I are talking about the future suit against the guy. I want to sue the guy for a very high amount to try and get press attention on this guy and his sketchy actions. Although my uncle warned me that we'll need to be careful, because if we set the damages too high, it'll look like we're just being vindictive. This suit won't be pro bono. But after getting sued 5 times for free, essentially, I'm not gonna complain. Looking back on this, I am so thankful that my friends and family supported the entire way, especially my uncle. Without my uncle, I would have absolutely lost my business. Yo, shout out to the OP for standing up to that Karen and winning the lawsuit. It's not easy starting your own business and dealing with bullshit like that. So props to you for not letting it bring you down. It sounds like you had a solid plan and worked hard to make your store a success, and it paid off. But you know what's more insane? The video on the left, where a Karen causes a hospital patient to die due to her ignorance. So OP spent years planning to get her fired.